We're looking at a passage from the 10th chapter of Luke's Gospel this morning. For several weeks, we have been and will be looking at a portion of Luke's Gospel known as the Great Insertion. Some of this material is found in different places and in slightly different form in Matthew's Gospel. The narrative or the frame setting is Jesus' journey to Jerusalem, his last journey. But Luke is never specific about places. In the passage we're studying today, he just says Jesus entered a village. He introduces the passage after this one by saying he was praying in a certain place. In the first few centuries of the church, commentators pored over these texts, trying to flesh them out. Where did these things happen? Who were these people? Where did they come from? What happened to them? It's more satisfying to tell and retell a story if you have names. You don't have to say he entered a village. So traditions developed outside of and alongside the scriptures. In the case of Mary and Martha, we have another reference in chapter 11 of John's Gospel. John tells us it was Mary who anointed Jesus with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. He identifies their village as Bethany, which could be helpful. But he raises a problem when he mentions the ointment and the wiping of Jesus' feet. In the other Gospels, these two actions are done by different women, and the accounts don't agree on whether Jesus' head or his feet were anointed. During the first few centuries, the women in these anointing stories came to be identified as the same woman, the Mary of Bethany, in our text today. And to add to our confusion, many early commentators identify this Mary as Mary Magdalene. Of course, Mary is a very common name among ancient Jews. It reminds me of a story. There's the incident in West Side Story where Tony is walking up through the streets of Spanish Harlem and he's crying out, "Maria, Maria." One woman sticks her head out the window. What is most remarkable about Mary's actions today is that she sits at Jesus' feet while he teaches. In antiquity, teachers typically sat. In the Gospels, Jesus reclines when he eats and sits when he teaches. The philosopher Aristotle was unusual because he walked around while he taught. He was called a peripatetic, which is Greek for a guy who walks around. For a woman to take her place at a teacher's feet must have shocked everyone in the room. Jews observed pretty strict separation of women from men in public. Women sat separately from men in the synagogue. Among Greeks and Romans, however, most philosophical schools taught that women had the same faculties for reasoning as men and should be taught like men so they could improve their souls. Socrates says one of his teachers was a woman named Diotima. For Mary to assume the position of a disciple in a Jewish context, though, was a really bold move. And it gave rise to questions about whether a woman could be an apostle, a term usually reserved for the men who followed Jesus. Let's read the passage now as it appears in your bulletin. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." This is the word of the Lord.